Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now if you watch my previous videos you'll recognise this PC as one I picked up on a previous parts hunt. This PC cost me a princely sum of £5 and there always a gamble from the recycling centre as to whether or not it will work. Fortunately I got this one back and it did boot straight into BIOS. Now the PC arrived with reasonable specs. It's got an i7-4790 in, 8GB of RAM and a GT 1030 graphics card. Now the easy thing to do would have been to just leave it as it is, slap in an SSD and put it up for sale for £100. But if we'd done that it would have sat around for weeks, wouldn't have got any interest, and we all know that LED lights make the games run 10 frames per second faster. So let's get it stripped out of the case, let's get creative with some of the power tools, and let's see if we can turn this thing into a proper gaming PC. So as you can see we're using a grinder here to cut out the I/O shield. Now I've seen different ways to do this, from people cutting cardboard out around it to people using a 3D printer. I do prefer to get my hands dirty with the proper tools, and it does tend to look much better than those solutions. And I'm just cutting out the little toggles to secure the CPU fan onto the motherboard. Again, it just makes that slightly easier when looking for little bits of nuts and bolts that can secure it. So apply the thermal paste, secured those onto those toggles we've took out, and we've got our I/O shield, as you can see. Just setting it up on the bench, giving it a test, and it's good to go now. It does bring up a few errors, as you can see there, which are easy to get rid of, and I'll talk you through that later on. But let's get this built into the case. Now I wanted to do this as cheap as I possibly could, so I went for the cheapest case I could find. I don't particularly like it, it's a bit gory for me, but it does the job, and I'm sure the kids will love it with the LED lights on the front. Those are those front two errors I was talking about. So to remove these errors you just get one of these jumpers off a motherboard. I've got hundreds of these lying around, but you can pick them up for pennies off Amazon. And you just want to put that on the last two pins to the left as you're looking at it from this perspective. So if you put it across those two there, and that will get rid of the error, and as you can see you can connect your front USB header just to the port at the side of it. And for your USB 3 header you just want to get some of these female to female jumper cables, and you want to go from number 1 to number 4, and again you can just plug into the USB 3 next to it for your front connections, and that will get rid of the errors for you. So here she is finished, and our specs now are the i7-4790 with 16GB of RAM and the GT 1032GB. We're playing GTA here, and we're getting an average of 43 frames per second on a custom mixture of normal and high settings, and it's a very playable experience to be fair. So you're getting around 40-50 frames per second at 1080p. And you could further lower your settings or lower your resolution if you wanted a higher frame rate. I found this is a good mix of looking good and playing well. And as you can see, obviously the GPU is holding us back. There's a little bit of headroom left on the CPU. But to use a different GPU, you could put in something like a GTX 1650 Super, something like that, and you'd see a much better performance. Or if you wanted to upgrade, you can buy a little adapter off Amazon for about £10. You can change your power supply and then you can put in a better graphics card. You don't want to go too high with this processor now, it is getting on, but it would handle something like a 1080, something like that, and you get a really good gaming experience out of it then. Moving over to Fortnite, we've got it on performance mode, native resolution 1080p, pretty much on low settings with 120 frame per second cap on it, but again you get a really good experience on Fortnite. you're looking at an average of 72 frames per second with 1% lows of 22. I think you get 9 on the 0.1% lows, but it's just as you're dropping into the map, it's particularly intensive. And unless you've got a really good system, you do get stutters on that part. Otherwise, when you're playing on the ground, you're perfectly fine. You're getting 80, 90, 100 frames per second. And you can get a few eliminations, even with me playing, and I'm garbage. Now I'm going to advertise this system up for sale with this basic monitor and a cheapo keyboard and mouse. I'm probably going to ask 150, 200 quid for it. If you've glanced over my other videos, you'll see the scammers on ones, and they're selling things like this with GT 730s in it, and they're charging between £300 and £400, and it's not running the game, just let it run. If someone comes to me and says, I want to buy this PC and I want to run Cyberpunk on high settings, I'd say, oh please God no, don't buy this won't do that. And I'll explain what it'll do, and for £175 running these games they'd be happy, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's cost me about £60–70, I've put a few hours of my time into it, and nobody works for free. So that's the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you liked it, then please subscribe. If you didn't, then please subscribe, it can only get better, and I'll see you on the next one.